So our apologies for that. What we'll do is we'll start with the introductions. You'll start with your team. And then one of the members will do a quick one also, because we are men, as I said, this is an expanded committee. And then from there we'll go straight into the matter. So let's have introductions as a start.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm Dingan Banda, Commissioner General for Zambia Revenue Authority. I will ask my colleagues who have joined me to just introduce themselves. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair and honorable members. My name is Moses Shuko, Commissioner Indirect Taxes and Excise. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, honorable members. My name is Ronald Chalwe. I'm Director under Direct Taxes Division. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chair, and good morning, honorable members. My name is Ezekiel Piri, Director, Research and Corporate Strategy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chair, and good morning, honorable members. My name is Beatrice Kachinda. I'm Acting Deputy Commissioner Support in Customs Services.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chair, and good morning, honorable members. My name is Yenda Shamabobo. I'm the Acting Executive Assistant to the Commissioner General. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable members, let's start from my far left, just at the back there, Honorable Mungandu. Let's do quick introductions.
Good morning, Commissioner General and your team. Mungandu Davison is my name, Member of Parliament, Chama South Constituency.
Good morning, Commissioner General and your team. My name is Chonde Gustav Saka, Member of Parliament for Milenge Constituency in Luapula.
Commissioner General and your team, good morning. My name is Michelo Kasauta, Member of Parliament for Wengwa constituency. I'm also the Chairman of Agriculture, Lands and Natural Resources.
Thank you. Honorable Luboja, can you start from there?
Good morning, Commissioner General and your team. My names are Lloyd Luosha, Member of Parliament for Chifugu.
Morning, my name is Brian Kambita, Member of Parliament for Zambezi East Constituency.
Good morning, our guests. My name is Peter Piri, Member of Parliament for Mukaika Constituency. Thank you.
Good morning, witness. My name is Jamba Majila, MP for Mwembe.
Good morning, Zedare. I'm Honorable Chisenga, MP Mabilime constituency.
Thank you. Honorable Simunji.
Good morning, Zedare. My name is Kona Simunji, Member of Parliament for Lalikwandi constituency and a member of the Planning and Budget Committee.
Good morning, Commissioner General and team. My name is Elliot Kamondo, Member of Parliament from Mfumbwe constituency and Chairperson of Government Assurances Committee.
Good morning, Commissioner. My name is Harry Kamboni, Member of Parliament for Karomo Central. You're welcome.
Good morning, Commissioner and your team. Movika, MP for Shango in Western Province and the committee member. You're welcome.
Thank you. Honorable Scholar.
The Commissioner, colleagues from ZRA. I'm Brigadier General Morgan Istola, retired, Member of Parliament for Kaoma Central in Western Province. I also chair the Committee on National Security and Foreign Affairs. You're most welcome this morning. Thank you.
Good morning, ZRA. My name is Tuambo Mutinta. I'm the Member of Parliament for Itestes constituency. And I'm the chairperson for the Parliamentary Committee on Education, Science and Technology. Thank you so much and you are most welcome.
Good morning, CG and team. My name is Mtotwe Kafuaya, MP for Lunte. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable, remember Mtale?
Good morning. I'm Member of Parliament for Chitambo. My name is Remember Mtale.
Yeah. Thank you. Members of staff.
Good morning. I'm Edna Kanguya Ziambo from the Office of the Clerk.
Okay, CG and your team, my name is Fred Jatila, Member of Parliament for Momba constituency in Monza and also the chairperson for the Expanded Planning and Budgeting Committee. CG as always kept off of the laws of Zambia gives you immunity as and when you are appearing before a committee such as this one. Take advantage of that, meaning whatever you say while appearing before this committee can never be used against you, except to the extent that you are to mislead the committee, which I doubt will be the case. Then the same capital works against you. And also just to indicate that we are live, both on radio and TV. So the people who give us these mandates out there are either listening or watching to the proceedings. So CG, what we'll do is we'll give you, say, 30 minutes if you need all of it to take us through the presentation. We have seen it's a bulky one. But also, I know that from page 25 somewhere, these are just housekeeping measures. Most likely, as you come to appear before the Planning and Budget Committee to look at the amendments in the other taxes, then we will deal with them. So, unless if there are those pertinent issues which appear on the Appendix 1 going forward, then you may want to touch on them. But primarily, maybe our discussion now will be from page 1 maybe to about page 24. So, CG and your team, when you are ready, we can start. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman and the honorable members, for welcoming us. We are ready to start, and Chair, we are well guided in terms of the areas of focus. So the first part I would like to take you, Chairman, and the members of Parliament, is page 1, where we've just covered the background, which is to the effect that we've been asked by the Expanded Planning and Budgeting Committee to make comments on the implications of the proposed tax measures in the 2023 budget estimates on the economy. Chair, if we focus on the main issues, we go to 2.0, which is overview of the 2023 budget macroeconomic objectives, which, Chair, you've well outlined there, but like indicated earlier, our main focus is on item number D, which is mobilized domestic revenue, resource revenue to at least 20.9% of GDP. Chair, that's the key area of interest on that page for us. So in terms of comments, which we've put on page 2, Chair, our comments is that the pronouncements in the 2023 budget has placed emphasis on stimulating economic growth, job creation, and improving the livelihoods of the people. Chair, government's policies and strategies that underpin the allocation of resources are anchored on the strategic development areas of the 8th National Development Plan, namely economic transformation and job creation, human and social development, environmental sustainability, and good governance environment. So, Chair, we think the budget is well aligned to those key areas of the 8th National Development Plan. If we can take the members to 3.0, which is revenue projections, where we have a breakdown of budget by revenue in 2023 compared to 2022, which is further expanded on page 3, where we have 3.2 breakdown of tax revenue in 2023 compared to 2022, and which is further outlined in the tables on page 4, where we've also put our comment. Chair, the comment from the Zambia Revenue Authority is that when you compare 2022 and 2023, the top contributors to tax collections have remained consistent. That's VAT, company income tax, and pay as you earn, which collectively in 2023 are going to account for 67.6% of the revenue that we're expected to collect. So it's a similar pattern as before. The only maybe notable change, if you look at the table above, is only on mineral royalty, where the revenue to GDP percentage has moved from 14.1% to 8.7%, of course, on account of the measures we explain as we go on. Chair, if we can move to page 5, where we have item number 4.0, budget concessionary measures. The first one being the increase in the exempt threshold for pay-as-you-earn. Chair, I would want to bring to your attention an anomaly there on the table below. On the band which is under proposed pay-as-you-earn regime, we've put the second band as the 25% instead of 20%. So that's a mistake. You can assist us to just correct that.
Remember, that was on page 5.
Page 5.
On page 5, yeah.
Yeah. Page 5, on the table has two columns. One is called current pay-as-you-earn, but on the second one, which is proposed pay-as-you-earn regime, the table which shows 4,801 to 6,800 would put that band as the 25%. But there's actually an incentive that has been reduced to 20%. No. Chair, this measure is intended to increase the disposable incomes of persons. This measure is intended to increase the disposable income and providing relief to employees and self-employed individuals, especially those in lower income brackets. So it's an important measure in terms of providing relief to our colleagues who are in those categories. Chair, for the sake of time, I'll just move into some of the key substantive ones. The next one I would want to take the committee to is 4.1.3, which is to restructure the taxation of mineral royalty tax to only the incremental value in each price range when the price crosses each mineral royalty price threshold. So, Chair, in terms of the rates, you can see that the current regime starts at 5.5, was the lowest. For less than 4,500 per tons, it goes up to 10,000 for $9,000 per ton or more. The proposed regime starts at a price of less than 4,000 per ton, and the rate is 4,000, and the highest band is still 10,000, but it kicks in at a price of $7,001 per metric ton. So the key aspect, Chair, is that this will now be applied on an incremental value in a similar manner that pay-as-you-earn is computed, unlike the one which was being done on the absolute values. So, Chair, our comment on this measure is that as the Minister ably amplified both in Parliament and at the subsequent budget engagements, the proposed measure is intended to attract investment in the mining sector and support increased output and job creation. This measure will also align Zambia's mineral royalty regime with international good practice by reducing the effective tax rate. Chair, when the policy intentions are achieved, leading to increased investment and, most importantly, production of the targeted 3 million metric tons in the next 9 years, it is anticipated that optimal revenues will be collected from mineral royalty. Chair, our assumption is based on the fundamental aspect that has been observed, that we have been stagnant at the same level of production for several years. And what has been changing a lot in terms of trying to maximize revenue has been the tax policy. So, and that also has been at the detriment of attracting investment in the country. So if the proposed measure results into increased investment and leading to improved production, then we anticipate that at higher production volumes, we should be able to collect optimal levels of revenue. That's our comment on this one, Chair. We can move on to page 7. We don't have much there, but we can go to page 8, where we have 4.1.13 measure, which is, Chair, introduce a presumptive tax on income earned from artisanal and small-scale mining at the applicable turnover rate, which is based on the gross turnover less mineral royalty paid. Chair and the honorable members, currently all mining companies, regardless of the size, are subject to corporate income tax. So this measure is therefore intended to simplify the tax regime for holders of artisanal and small-scale mining license, so as to improve, among others, their tax compliance. Chair, we anticipate that when successfully implemented, this measure will enhance the contribution of holders of artisanal and small-scale mining licenses toward generation of revenue from minerals such as gold and manganese and copper, among others. Chair, we've elaborated this at length in the past. We do hear a lot of publicity on gold mining, manganese mining, among others. But when it comes to aspects such as accounting for mineral royalty on gold, if you ask us a question, how much did you collect on mineral royalty from gold from this small scale, it's a very difficult question for us because the level of accountability on this product is very low and the informalities are very high right now. So this measure, Chair, we believe it to bring in an element of formality. It will encourage the players in this sector who may be now in the underground economy, as indicated in the budget speech, to formalize their businesses so that they're able to contribute towards their revenue. Chair, this measure is important because if you benchmark with other countries such as Tanzania, Zimbabwe, the artisanal and small-scale minings make quite a significant contribution to their economies, and they have a simplified tax regime which probably stimulates that level of compliance. So it's a very important measure, Chair, for consideration. The next one, Chair, we can look at is on page 9, 4.1.18, which is reduced to 0% from 15%, the withholding tax rate on interest earned by individuals from loans advanced to members under the savings groups such as cooperatives and village banking. Chair, it's a well-known fact that a lack of access to affordable capital affects the growth of the SMEs, where the majority of the people are actively involved in economic activities. So this incentive is meant to stimulate the growth of SMEs by enabling them have access to affordable capital. Chair, if you look at the sources of capital, some of it comes from us as individuals. Right now, the tax policy framework is such that if an individual puts money in a savings account and earns interest, the interest earning bank accounts held with financial institutions, the interest there is free, it's zero. So this measure is meant to accord the same incentive when one lends money or channels their funds through cooperatives, the savings groups, among other channels. So the interest that will be earned from that sector will also be zero. I mean, the tax on the interest that will be earned in that sector also be zero. Chair, the next one we can go to is on, we cross over, for the interest of time, so we will cross over to page 14. Equally, there's another measure, 4.1.10, where we want to suspend, where the policy intention is to suspend 15% customs duty on imported automatic teller machines for a period of 1 year. Chair, an equally important measure that is meant to promote financial inclusion and increase access to financial service provisions across the country. Chair, that's one of the key measures there. Then we can also go to page 15, where we have we do have 4.4.16. Reduce customs duty on electric vehicles and electric motorcycles to 15% from 30% and 25% respectively. Chair, the world is moving away from fossil fuels to renewable energies. So this measure is intended to encourage the adoption and use of electric vehicles and electric motorcycles in the country, and it's an important measure. Chair, page 16 has some cross-cutting measures there, some to do with the promoting of suspend 4.1.18, we suspend customs duty on selected equipment for the music and film industry for duly registered businesses up to 2025. This measure is intended to reduce the cost of capital equipment and improve the industry's competitiveness. So you can see, Chair, there are quite a number of incentives also that, as you can see, they are targeted towards the promotion of the SMEs as indicated there. The next section we'll go to, Chair, is on page 17. Under budget compensating measures, the section on direct taxes, The first one, Chair, is 5.1.1, which is extend the turnover tax regime to service providers in the gig economy. Chair, this measure seeks to simplify the tax regime and improve compliance among taxpayers in this sector. Chair, currently there are entrepreneurs conducting their business through digital platforms, that's through the internet, among others, and pay their taxes under the income tax regime. So this category of taxpayers includes independent freelance contractors. These may be content developers, these are the computer developers, program developers, the online marketers, online traders, among others. So the players in this sector called the gig economy is one form through which unemployed Zambian citizens can earn a living by providing services outside the country. Chair, you recall that there's a famous model which is quite common in India, where India has developed its economy based on the offshore services that they provide to, among others, companies in the USA and so forth. And now we have a number of other countries in Africa equally where their citizens are able to provide services offshore. So this measure will assist this category of our citizens to ensure that they have a simplified tax regime and they are compliant. But it will just indicate that for the concept to work effectively in Zambia, there will be need also to address the bottlenecks that relate to receipt of payments from such international services. So that's one aspect that may need to be looked into to fully actualize the expectations of this measure. Chair, we can go to the next page. We have page 18. We have proper transfer tax measures there, where the proposal is to increase the proper transfer rate to 7.5% from 5% on the transfer of land, shares, and intellectual property. And the measure is intended to enhance domestic revenue mobilization. Chair, we can go to page 19, where we have customs and excise. The other policy measures have been well explained at different platforms. We'll just focus on the ones that probably we may need to further clarify on. Probably we can go to page 21, Chair, where we have 6.0, which we have cross-cutting and other measures. Chair, I want to focus on 6.1.1, which is introduce a tax amnesty on penalties and interest. Chair, the program intends to accord taxpayers an opportunity to normalize their tax records and ensure that they are tax compliant. The measure will give relief to taxpayers, especially those who are negatively impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. The amnesty covers liabilities for tax types accrued up to 30th September and will run from 1st October 2022 to 31st March 2023. Chair, the House may need to know that as part of the COVID-19 relief measures, the Zambia Revenue Authority suspended the charging of the automatic charging of penalties and interest. And while this is a well-intentioned measure, on the other hand, it has brought some levels of complacity in terms of the adherence to the tax statutes. So we have seen levels of tax compliance going down. From 2017, we had about 78% on average. Now we've dropped to around 43%. So it's our intention that before we start reactivating the enforcement measures, the taxpayers are given an opportunity in the next 6 months to take corrective measures and ensure that they put their books in order before we start embarking on the various compliance enforcement mechanisms. So it's an important measure, and I do recall, Chair, when we appeared in this House, one of the meetings we were asked, why don't you consider a tax amnesty? So, Chair, it has come now. Thank you. The next one, Chair, we're looking at is page 22, 6.1.4. This is implementation of coordinated border management concept that will streamline the number of regulatory agencies at the borders to 6 from about 18. Chair, this measure is intended to improve trade facilitation by implementing the coordinated management border approach, which will reduce the number of government agencies physically at the borders. Chair, this will assist in reducing the delays relating to completing the regularities with the agencies present at the border. In addition to this measure, there will be need to implement other provisions of the Border Management and Trade Facilitation Act. Chair, I'm sure members may have seen in the media, there's usually a comparison between, especially at Kazungula, on the time it takes to be saved on the Botswana side as compared to the Zambian side. Members of public have raised concern that it takes less than 2 hours to be saved on the Botswana side. Or on the Zambian side, it can take excess of even half a day for one to receive the service. Now, the key issues is to look at what have our friends done on the Botswana side that we've not done on the Zambian side. Besides the fact that on the Zambian side, maybe the key aspect is that it's an import side. We are looking at revenue. On Botswana side, they're looking at export. But there are other aspects that they've done in terms of improving the service. One of them is that they've reduced the number of government agencies physically present at the border. They only have 6. In Zambia, we have over 15 there, government agencies. Each one of them, they've got their own internal regulations. At times, the operating hours are not harmonized. The border opens from 6 to 22. Other government agencies don't have staff to be at the border for that duration of time. And among others. Number 2, payment points. Botswana, you pay at 1 point for all statutory obligations. In Zambia, I think we have about 3 pay points when you go to Kazungula. So all those aspects that we need to harmonize to ensure that we facilitate trade. And among the key issues we are looking at, Chair, is that we need to escalate the pace of connecting government agencies to the single window, so that those that will not be physically operating from the borders will be able to provide the regulatory services remotely by using the Zambia electronic single window. We already have a number of government institutions that are on the single window. At the moment, the number is about 49 of different government ministries plus departments and so forth that are already on the single window. So that's one of the key measures, Chair, that needs to be implemented and supported in terms of interventions to facilitate trade. I'll take you, Chair, to 6.1.6, which is the interface ZI systems with the IFMIS and the land management system. Chair, the measure is aimed at facilitating the integration of operations of public institutions and breaking the current silo operations. The measure, once implemented, will assist in increasing efficiency in public service delivery, mitigate corruption, and the related revenue leakages. Chair, if you look at the approach to public service delivery, particularly in us developing countries, each institution is in a silo. You do processes within one institution, and most of the time, at the end of the day, you end up with a paper, go and introduce to another institution. And in between, there are a lot of inefficiencies that come up. There are opportunities for revenue leakages and corruption that come along that. So this measure aims at continuing the pronouncement that was made last year that ZRA will be interfaced to other government systems. So this year, among others, actually from this event, we're going to launch the interface with RATSA that we've managed to achieve now. We have connected to RATSA, so from here we're going there to officially launch today. So next year, we are going to target to launch the same connection with IFMIS. Okay? We are on the income side as ZRA. We generate the income, government through IFMIS, that's the expenditure side. We are the same financial statement. So we need to be connected. The lack of this connection at the moment poses a lot of challenges in the sense that there are taxpayers, for example, who would owe ZRA money in form of tax obligations, and the same taxpayers are probably suppliers of goods and services to the government. The government, at the time of paying, they will pay them. And then ZRA starts following up afterwards to start chasing for the money, and yet we are one institution. So what we want to achieve with this measure is that before government pays, they will check in the tax online, does this person owe ZRA any money? And then based on some percentage which we have stipulated, we'll hold part of that. And we know businesses have to strive, they have to continue. We can't hold on everything. We'll say maybe let's hold on the 30% or 40% to service the debt that they owe. What does that do, Chair? It helps also to keep the revenue generating cycle in a sustainable, it keeps moving, in the sense that whatever ZRA will hold on, it will pass back to government. Then government will have more resources to buy more goods and services from the suppliers. And then we hold on again, we pass back to government. Countries which have implemented this have seen a very high growth in terms of revenue to GDP. So it's a very important measure, and the interface which talks to the measure that is on the next page as well. The lands one, it's a very important one. We are told that the factors of production are land, capital, and labor. So if we have an efficient process of, for example, unlocking processing efficiencies on land transactions. Right now, when a consent to assign is issued, I mean, somebody has to come physically to ZRA with a paper. ZRA processes the documents, does a proper transfer certificate. Someone has to get a physical document back to Ministry of Lands. Now, imagine we are able to connect ZRA with Ministry of Lands, meaning that whatever document Ministry of Lands produces, they feed into our system as ZRA. And when we approve the proper transfer, we issue certificates, it goes automatically to Ministry of Lands. Someone can finish the entire land transaction without moving from one office to the other. But along the way, from government side, these are some of the measures that will mitigate any opportunities for revenue leakages that may be there. So it's equally a very important measure which we have. I've already talked about 6.1.7, where we have to do the withholding mechanism. Then now, Chair, I'll go to my last point, which is 6.1.8, where the intention is to make it mandatory for all employees to submit a tip-in for all their employees in the pay as UN return. Chair, the measure is intended to improve tax compliance and safeguard revenue. Additionally, employees will easily know if their pay-as-you-earn contributions are being submitted correctly to ZRA by their employers through individualized statements, which will become possible to produce once this measure is fully implemented. The employers will also reduce the need for pay-as-you-earn audits, thereby reducing the cost of compliance. Chair, at the bottom of this measure, we do have a challenge of tax compliance, including on pay-as-you-earn. Right now, the level of compliance is on return is about 51%. So a number of our registered taxpayers for this tax type are not fully compliant. So our expectation is that when this measure is fully implemented, an employee will be able to see how much has been deducted and remitted to ZRA, and ZRA will be able to acknowledge by sending a message. Chair, what we are proposing here is not unconventional. If you look at the operations now, including at the bank, when the money enters the bank account, you receive an SMS. You know, and a number of other transactions. There's an acknowledgement from the recipient to say, yes, I've acknowledged receipt. So it's not something out of the ordinary. This is a measure that is being applied in many other sectors and industry. And it's a measure that we would really want to see the support of your committee chair and the honorable members here. Chair, in conclusion, what we can say as Zambia Revenue Authority is that the tax measures announced in the 2023 budget provide significant fiscal incentives to the private sector, which are aimed at stimulating economic growth as well as create jobs to support people's livelihood. This growth will ultimately grow the tax base, which is critical for domestic revenue mobilization. The Zambia Revenue Authority, therefore, supports the measures announced in the 2023 budget and will pursue administrative initiatives to optimize revenue collection. Chair, I submit.
Okay, great. Honorable members, that was a submission from the Commissioner General, and thank you very much. You have saved 5 minutes, which I'll pass to the members. So members, we have maximum of 15 minutes. One question per person. So I note the hand of Honorable Simunji, Honorable Kamonda, and Honorable Kambita. Then we go to the second round. Maybe we can take 4. They will take also Honorable Kambon. Colleagues, because of the time limits, let's be brief in our questions. Honorable Simunji. The mic, Commissioner General.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioner General, I'll take you to page 1. And my question will revolve around item D E and F, where you are saying mobilize domestic revenue to at least 20.9% of GDP, achieve a fiscal deficit to not more than 7.7% of GDP, and limit domestic borrowing to no more than 3%. When you look at our budget this year, we have a deficit of about 54%, meaning we can only generate about 113 billion from our own domestic revenues. How do you hope to bridge the gap now and in the future? Because you are our only Omega, where we can generate our own revenues, so that we reduce on foreign financing, meaning a debt. I'm talking about in terms of automation, both tax revenue and non-tax revenue, so that we can bridge the gap. How do you hope to do that now and in the future? Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Commander.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Mine actually just want a clarification. The people of Zambia, most of the times I've spoken that as a country, we are not getting enough from the mines. I remember very well, I went to a workshop where the theme was natural resources and minerals, a curse or a blessing to Africa. So people have complained that we don't get enough from what we have. Now the government intends to increase the tonnage for copper to about 3 million, which is a welcome move. And now we've seen actually the taxes also being reduced a bit. Have you done any benchmarking to compare those that have been doing this system and how they've managed to progress? Because we have 9 years that we are looking at. And then what happens in an event that even after 5 years, we don't have actually investors coming in? Don't you think somehow we are going to lose out? Thank you.
Honorable Kambita.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Now, Chairperson, I know you have allocated less time to interrogating ZRA. This is where the budget is, because this is where the income will come from for it to finance the budget. So I would, with your indulgence, I would ask you to allow us to ask more than a question.
For now, one question at a time, then we will still go to the next round. So pick one.
I have two concerns, of course, but the first one is I think I take you to the part where you have talked about customs and excise. Customs and excise is the tax related to imports that come in. And then I take notice, in particular, that you have given some kind of relief to certain selected items, including ATMs. And the reasons you are giving are not convincing in as far as I'm concerned. Just to cite that as an example, for financial inclusion, an ATM, whoever is involved in the business of running an ATM, which is most likely going to be a financial institution like a bank, must be somebody who is really able to handle such kind of costs. Now, this is the argument that the people I represent are saying, that most of the reliefs that seem to be given are being given to the people that are already rich, other than the relief going to the people who actually deserve to have the tax reliefs. So I want your comment on this one, because how will this stimulate financial inclusion? I'm aware that there is a financial inclusion strategy that was launched by, I think, the central bank. But is this one of the measures that you think will improve financial inclusion? We'll have an ATM in Katonto, in Zambezi East.
Okay.
I submit.
Thank you, Honorable Kamboni. Mike.
May I begin by thanking you for very good representation, straightforward and clear to the point. Thanks for that preparation. your tax regime in people who are lower doing business is too complicated for them. It's not complicated for those who went to school, but apparently in our country, we have a lot of, if you simplified it, like the way they've done in Rwanda, Kigali, you would benefit more. In Rwanda, from even the people who are riding motorcycles, there is almost 98% compliance. They actually rush because it's affordable. Also at customs, buying of the car. I first bought a car here a long time ago, and it took me that time, that was I think 1996, it took me almost 1.5 months to have the car cleared. Then I went to Botswana and I bought a car from South Africa. I went at the border, filled in the form. I took less than 2 minutes. They put a stamp. I said, what next? Because I was expecting an agent or something. They said, no, go to Habrun. That was on a Saturday. I went to Habrun. I was at my house. Monday I went in, paid 12,000. I remember 12,500 puller. Immediately after I paid, I went next door. I got registration book. I had number plates. My car was moving. Here to buy a car is very tedious, very complicated. Even when you have paid online, the amount they will pay, you still get somebody waiting for 4 or 5 days. My point is, I think, if we can simplify all these, they have been there for a long time. This can really help you in gaining more tax. And also, why is it that for all the cars, the price is reduced? We're encouraging Zambians to have all the cars instead of new cars, which bring in pollution in the country. In my view, tax actually should be considered. We should encourage Zambians to buy better cars by reducing so that they can buy cars that are better than old ones. And then lastly, you said that it dropped here, compliance level, from 78 to somewhere like 48. And this again entails how, again, the issue of the tax regime not being very friendly, where to ask also the offices of your offices are very few. And let me talk of Southern Province, I know. In Livingstone, we have offices for Zambia Revenue. Kalomo, the biggest district, with a lot of big white farmers, a lot of income, trucks and so forth. We don't have any offices. You have to go to Choma to find offices. You go, so the offices are really dotted very far away. Even information sometimes is very difficult to get.
Okay.
And so, whereas in countries where it's so simplified, if you go to a country like Namibia, South Africa, Botswana, every village has got the revenue authority. They have got where you can go and cash, get information immediately. And as a result, compliance levels are very high. For me, I think the key is make this very simple to an ordinary person to understand it, and from volume, you will make more. If tax becomes prohibitive, then people get other means to go the other way around. There is no need in South Africa, Botswana, you don't quarrel on the receipt. You get a receipt, correct receipt. You check there, the tax is meaningful, and you manage. I asked this time, I said, if I bought a brand new Land Cruiser in South Africa, I took the quote to a former classmate who works at ZRA. Can you calculate exactly how much I'm supposed to pay tax? He calculated, he said, you are supposed to pay 561,000, which was actually slightly more than half the price I would buy it at South Africa. It was 45,000 USA dollars. Then he said, if you have a SADC certificate, then it will come to about 270. Are we together here? So again, if tax is too much, you reduce the people that are going to come. And that's what brings in people going around. But of course, now it has been getting better and better. In my view, compared on comparative basis, it can still be better, because the more it is friendly, the more you have customers, and the more you make money through volume, and the better the compliance. I thought I should comment, and you could react to that. Thank you.
CG, maybe under 5 minutes. Are you able to respond to those? Then we'll do the next round, and then we'll close.
Thank you very much, Chair. The first question on how do you hope to bridge the gap on the revenues that are expected. I think the key emphasis in our submission was on the expected revenue to GDP, but the fundamental aspects in terms of how to bridge the gap, like we've said, we need to improve compliance as a country. If you look at our contribution right now, we have, for example, for January to August, we have 5 sectors out of 22 that account for 75% of the revenue, and on top of that is the mining sector at 41.8%. So for us is to look at measures that will enable us to ensure that compliance both on tax and non-tax revenue is enhanced. Within the mining sector itself, of course, to answer some of the questions coming up, the contribution that is coming in, which is around 41.8% for January, you'll find that it's coming from a handful of mines, just a few mines. Okay, if you look at the category of small to medium-sized mines, a lot of them are not compliant. About 2,404 of them registered. Last year, only 171 accounted for mineral royalty. So for us, remember the key issue is also to look at within the sectors where we see potential and economic value, how do we ensure we drive the levels of compliance higher? So part of the measures that we're doing, first of all, this year in Q1, we formed the Mineral Value Chain Data Analysis Unit. What this team has been doing is to check how many companies are we registered that are in mining. Of these companies, how many exported minerals? We can see, okay, these are the ones that have been exporting minerals. Then we take a step back. Did these companies that export mineral also pay mineral royalty? We find that a good number of them, they're exporting, but they're not paying mineral royalty. Some of them even exporting, they're not even reporting production to the Minister of Mines on Moses. So for us, it's identifying of these gaps now that we start moving in. For example, through that exercise, what we've done is to start engaging those mines. We found that they were exporting, but we can't see records of their mineral royalty. So some of them are aggregators, meaning that they buy from a number of smaller scale mines, they aggregate and export. So we said, we are going to appoint you as a withholding mineral royalty agent. So we've started now that process. So far we've appointed how many? Is it 2? 2. Yeah, so far we've appointed 2 to be withholding mineral royalties. So it's through such interventions that we want to maximize the collection of revenue. And the second issue, Chair, we've been before this committee before, and we've said that for Zambia to maximize the benefits, among other things, we need a regulator for the mining sector. The same way we have ZICTA for the telecoms, we have ERB for, yeah. So now you've heard in the minister's pronouncement that the regulator for the mining sector is coming. Among other issues, this regulator now will ensure that these mines that are registered or that have licenses, if they're into production, they need to be reporting production to the Minister of Mines. They need also to be accounting for mineral royalty. Most importantly, we need to have proper analysis of what is contained in the minerals that is being exported and of what value is that. All this is part of the work that integrated work with a regulator will help us undertake. So this, in terms of further, so this what I've explained feeds into the question that was asked by Honorable Kamwendo, or not getting enough for the mining and the issues of the how do we attain the 3 million tons benchmarking. Let's maximize what we have at the moment, because there are a lot of leakages already. And then even as the new investors are coming on board, we ensure that the governance systems in terms of accounting for production, mineral content and all that, they're already in place and we're able fully to account for what is being produced. So those measures will really assist in that space. And then for the non-revenue, to maximize both revenue, tax revenue, non-revenue, the key issue is, like I indicated earlier, we need to work in an integrated way. Right now, like I said, we're going to launch a tracer. So imagine the systems that will be connected now, meaning that there's nowhere someone to cheat. They can't cheat at ZRA, they can't cheat at RAS. So imagine the entire government, all the processes are interconnected. It means both tax revenue and non-tax revenue, there will be a high level of compliance. Then the issue of the ATMs, Honorable Kambita, the one you raised, that is giving the advantage to people who are already rich and the banks. The unfortunate issue, Honorable Minister, Honorable MP, is that at the end, thank you. Thank you. The issue is that the costs is not ultimately absorbed, for example, in this case, given by the bank. The bank also passes on that cost to the consumer. So this measure is meant to provide relief now to the banks so that they also don't pass on the additional cost to the consumer. Thereby, it should help to reduce the cost of providing the services. Chairman, the issue is our level of financial inclusion is still very low. I think it's about 69%, thereabout. Other countries, they look at Kenya, they're in excess of 80%, they're going to 90s and so forth. So we need to put in place not just this incentive. This is not the only incentive. I believe there will be many more. My understanding is that the 2017-2022 financial inclusion strategy is ending this year. So we're looking at what additional strategy will come on board in the 2023 strategy going forward. So I believe this won't be the only measure to improve financial inclusion. There will be many more. I'll ask my okay, maybe for the interest of time, I'll just cover this. The issue around lower cost for small-scale farmers, we have small-scale enterprises. We do have a number of interventions that are targeted at small-scale entrepreneurs, including some of the incentives have been outlined here. And we also have a turnover tax regime where it's just a flat rate, which is at 4%, and that also helps in terms of simplifying that. But fundamentally, Honorable Kambona, as you've rightly raised, we need to do things differently. The way our colleagues who are doing these things in Botswana, South Africa, they are fellow human beings like us. They have Botswana, Namibia, all these countries we're mentioning, they are interconnected. That's why at the border, you're able to pay at the border. Already the information is passed on to other government agencies. They already have the information. You go there maybe to pay, or you already have some information relating to that. So that is what we want to achieve also. All these interfaces we're doing with different organizations, for example, motor vehicles now, it means that when a vehicle is registered at the border, whether Nakondo or anywhere, you are here in Lusaka, immediately you pay. That data is sitting at Rata, including here at head office. That will happen. That we've been piloting from April this year. So those are some of the interventions that we want to ensure that we put in place to streamline all these operations. And equally in terms of our geographical presence, a very important issue raised, we're only there in the provincial centers and other major towns. But there's business happening in all these other towns. So one of the measures, Chair and the honorable members, is that we signed MOUs with the councils as our agents. So far we've appointed 3 councils, our target to go to about 80. So these councils now will be our local agents, and among other things, we will use them also later on for tax education platforms. And one of the concerns is that, will they handle money for you and so forth? We already have digital platforms through which all payments, all registrations will be done. So we are working closely with the council, and that's part of the decentralization. It fits into the decentralization strategy, because the councils will be able to generate money also from the commission that they'll be earning from ZRA. So that's the approach that we're taking on those issues. I submit, Chair.
Okay, the last round, Honorable Mungandu. Let's look at the back. Okay, so we'll take one from Honorable Mungandu, Honorable Piri, and Honorable Mvika, and then we'll wind down. Okay, Honorable Mungandu, very brief.
Thank you.
No preambles. Let's go straight to the point.
Commissioner General, for me, I'm more interested on the revenue.
Mungandu, can you be a bit loud?
In the morning, it's like this.
Thank you. I hope I'm audible now.
Now we are okay, yes.
Thank you. Commissioner General, I'm more interested on the revenue side, because yours the responsibility collecting money for the treasury. Do you think the efforts that are being put in place by government vis-a-vis concessions to the mines in the past 12 months are achieving their intended purpose? I ask this if you see the minister's speech. He's indicated that the mining sector has been contracting. Production levels have been going down. You've given concessions so that we increase production. Actually, we are anticipating that in the next 9 years now, we are talking of 3 million metric tons from 900, somewhere 800 metric tons per annum. Do you think we are achieving that? Because instead of us having a higher output, the output is going down. Okay. Then the final one.
One question at a time. So
maybe you can allow me to come back later.
We will allow you maybe to come back later in case we have time. I had seen also a hand from Honorable Mutale. Honorable Mutale, very brief.
Thank you very much, CG. My question is on the 3 million metric tons. Have we done our projections? Are we looking at, we are not in control of the prices of copper on the world market. Have we done our projections? Have we seen how much copper will be selling in that 9 years? Because we might be investing in something that won't bring revenue to this country. So have we done our research? Where are we?
Okay, Honorable Piri.
Thank you so much, Chair. My question is on page 3, on the revenue side. It's indicated here that from pay as you earn, almost 19 billion will be realized. Now, I want to compare to the mineral royalty, which is almost 9 million only. Now, my question is, don't you think we are asking a lot from our citizens, and that these people now who are already poor will become poorer? Because surely we are expecting to get more from our mines. But I know you have answered already that question. But I'm just thinking around that surely we are asking a lot from our citizens, and that these people, how I wish they could be considered one other time, because the investors are given tax holidays. They don't pay. And you have said it here that we don't have the capacity to know which minerals these people are taking out of the country. We don't have the capacity. 50 years plus, we do not have the capacity up to now. But meanwhile, our citizens, the Zambian people, they are paying just from their, upon receiving a salary, the money is deducted. But meanwhile, the investors whom we are expecting a lot, they are only going away with tax concessions, tax holidays, mission and so on. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Honorable Muvika.
Thank you very much, Chairman. DG.
The Commissioner General.
Commissioner General. Okay. Some years back, it was said that some of your, okay, you are ahead now, some of your directors were leaving ZRA to go and work for the mines and assisting the mines to evade the tax. The mines are ever saying, no, they're making losses, but they are ever there, they are thriving. We are seeing whatever they are doing, importing machinery. So I don't know how now you have managed now to ensure that some of those, I can say traitors in brackets, who left ZRA to go and work for the mines, to assist the people with money to evade the tax, when you are so hard, as a write down Honorable Piri's question on Zambians. I get a loan from Indo today. First day, start charging me tax. There's not even a month or two for me as a Zambian citizen. You start paying tax. And also, I think I didn't get correct the response on him concerning duty. Commissioner, you are too expensive on duty. A 15-year-old Pajero, I'm paying 60,000 kwacha. 15-year-old. So maybe you can, as you answer to the other question, maybe you can include those. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Okay, so CG will load you with a bit of 2 more questions so that we can respond everything and then we will close. Honorable members, we have been here for a long time. Honorable Kafaya.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, I request that you direct the CG to take my clarification first, as I'm just about to walk out.
Okay.
CG, it's a simple clarification. I heard you saying that we are going to reach our target of 3 million tons in 9 years' time. The minister eluded me. I think I didn't see where he said that. How did you deduce that from his speech? Thank you so much.
Thank you. Then the last one, CG, is over the issue of you indicated, I think you were answering to Honorable Kamboni's question. I think one of the colleagues asked about the issue of the mines, and we were saying what is lacking now is to find a regulator for the mines. When you are talking about the numbers of the mines which are now able to tax and versus those who are not paying anything. But I thought we have the extractive industries transparency initiative. I think you call it EITT something, which I thought maybe that is one of the duties this initiative is supposed to do in terms of monitoring and doing the regulation. Why do you want to add another layer or finding another regulator for the mines? So maybe respond to those. Then after that, we know you have another engagement. We can let you go to another important assignment. So start with Honorable Kafuya's question, and then you go to respond to Honorable Mvika. Colleagues, Honorable Mungandu, we have a question here already. We have asked. So we will not allow you to ask another one. We are way out of time.
Okay, thank you, Chair. And it's important these questions are being asked. In terms of the 3 million tons, if you remember in last year's speech, it's a policy pronouncement in terms of the target that we want to reach in 10 years' time. So last year it was indicated as in 10 years' time we need to reach 3 million metric tons. So this year we just reduced to yes, please. So that's a clarification on that. Then on the issue of a regulator, sir, it's an important topic we need to discuss as a country. And my understanding, EIT is not a public. Is not part of the government structures that is focused on regulating the industry. If you look at a country like Tanzania, they've got what is called the Tanzania Mining Commission. Ghana also has one, Ghana Mining Commission. Chile, which we look up to also in terms of copper production, has a mining commission. So this is a regulator that ensures, among others, in terms of issues of licenses, are the licenses being appropriately issued? Are those holders of licenses utilizing them more for speculative purposes? But most importantly, when the mines go into production, the mines are mandated to report to the regulator how much have they produced, or even share with the regulator their mining plan. What's my mining plan for the next couple of years? Okay, and how much of minerals am I producing, reporting production. What is the content of the mineral? In relation to the mining plan, which area of the mining you are mining from? What is the content of the mineral coming out? How does it relate to the reports you are producing? What are the costs of your production? How does it relate to the benchmarks in other countries or other mines? You know, and a number of such factors that they take into account. And most importantly, also, the mines usually have plans for local content in terms of how many local jobs are they going to create, how much are they going to procure in value from the local communities and so forth. So all those are some of the issues that the regulator makes follow-ups and ensures that they're being complied with. So it's a very important aspect. Lessons, I traveled with a team to Tanzania twice. We looked at what they're doing in that space. That's a model on which we built the mineral value chain monitoring project. So it's a very important thing for a country to have, and it's a welcome development that the minister has pronounced, and we need to support it, Chair. That's a clarification on the regulator. If I'm to go back to the question, how do we intend to achieve the revenue intentions in view of all these concessions being given and so forth? I think the fundamental issue which we alluded to earlier on is the issue of ensuring that we are able to fully account for what is being produced at the moment. Like we said, among the big mines, the high level of compliance, we have statistics there in terms of how they've moved into ensuring that what they produce, they're able to account for it and so forth. What we have a problem with is the category of small to medium mines. That's where the big problem is. So we need to ensure that we bring everybody to the level of compliance. They're able to report what they produce. We're able to know what is contained in what they produce. And we're able to ensure that the mineral royalty is being collected in that area. Now, Honorable Mtale, the issue of the projections in terms of what is likely to happen in future and so forth. Remember, like you rightly said, the LME price is outside our control. What is the other variable we look at in terms of deriving revenue? Is the production. That is within our control. I mean, to some extent, because people are within our environment that they have to mind. The tax policy is the most important, which is within our control. What have we been changing in the past couple of years? We've been changing the tax policy. We increase it, we drop it, and so hoping along the way we'll find the formula to help us generate revenue. But we've seen that that also is affecting what? Production. Because the mines now are saying, look, your tax policy is not competitive enough. So we are not going to invest into increasing your production. And this is the example the minister keeps giving. Let's look at Congo. We see all those trucks at Kasumbalesa and all these, but that tells us the level of extent to which the economy there has been stimulated, among others, to produce more. So for us, I think the key issue is to try to copy from others what they've done to stimulate production. We stimulate production, that's one aspect. Stabilize the tax, that's one aspect. Now, if production goes up, which we anticipate should happen, and the price also happens to go up, remember price is outside of control, then we should see an environment where we collect more from the mining sector. Now, what do we foresee happening that can push the price up? Honorable member, there's a lot of research now on the company. Remember, part of the key drivers of copper demand have been maybe the housing demand is highly used maybe in China and other countries. But there's a new segment that has come in now, the renewable energies, these electric cars and so forth. So the focus is that the price in the future is likely to go higher because of the new areas of demand that are opening up. So imagine a situation where we push production up and the price is also up. It means that we'll be able to collect more as a country. But if the price goes up and we're stuck at this same 800,000 metric tons, then we'll be seeing our friends smiling in DRC and other countries while we are stuck at the same price. And if we try to play with policy again, that formula may not work, as it has failed in the past. So probably those are some of the fundamental issues we may need to look at on this issue. Then, Honorable Piri, just to clarify that indeed you've compared mineral royalty versus pay-as-you-earn. One factor we shouldn't take away is that, remember, some of this payment that is coming through pay-as-you-earn is as a result of the mines being there. The mines are one of the major employers. So imagine if the mines are not there. Would the pay-as-you-earn also come, as you expect? No, because they're one of the major employers. So part of the payments of pay-as-you-earn you're seeing here is actually coming from the mining sector, as they're one of the major employers. And just to also indicate and amplify on the policy pronouncement already announced by the minister, the threshold has now been adjusted. So just this year alone, with the new change that has been made, it means that we have 518,000 employees now that are under the zero threshold for paying pay-as-you-earn. 518,000. Can you imagine that number? They're not paying tax on pay-as-you-earn. That's what this policy measure has entailed. So just to clarify, there are incentives such as this one targeted at the individuals and small-scale entrepreneurs to stimulate their income levels. Chair, I think I've covered the issue of directors.
The last one, yes, the issue of directors.
I wish Honorable was more specific on the directors in question, but lately we've not had any director, unless my friends can remember, we've not had any directors leaving ZRA. But we do have cases where lower level staff leave naturally, like in any place. Someone dangles a higher carrot than we can afford, they leave and join other institutions. But that's one of the issues we want to ensure that we try to guard against, as you've right identified. That's a risk. If ZRA staff start leaving, join other companies, the risk is that the information that they have about ZRA will pass on to them. That's why we try as much as possible, not out of selfish reasons, but to ensure that the staff are well remunerated and they don't leave to go to other places like that. But we've tried as much as possible to ensure we build capacity internally and we remunerate the staff well so that they don't leave. Those are some of the measures we're taking. Yes, duty on vehicles, unfortunately, it's a tax policy measure. It's you, the honorables, who pass the law. So ours is just to implement. But just to indicate and just align to Honorable Kamboni's area issue, about 3 or 4 years ago, the duty was it was standard rated so that it's also aligned to the age of the vehicle. The older the vehicle is, you pay more. But there's a lot of predictability that was put in that there are standard rates now that are applying on the duties. I think we can share the schedule that we have, which is on the website. I will do that. Thank you. Thank you, Honorable, and thank you, Chairman. I submit.
Commissioner General, thank you for the time. Cap 12 of the laws of Zambia, which was conferred on you, Area 1 NCA. Thank you very much. I'll call you at some point before the end of the day today. Thank you very much for other issues. Yeah. So do enjoy the rest of the day and all the best.
On behalf of my colleagues, I know it was quite tight, but thank you very much for the opportunity, and we thank the honorable members for the questions raised.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Keep watching Parliament Television, a station that brings Parliament closer to you.
Our sincere apologies for overrunning. We had a bit of a glitch early in the morning, so we have kept you quite long. Honourable members, Zika is before us. Zika, you are appearing before the expanded planning and budgeting committee, just trying to look at the issues of the revenue and expenditure following the pronouncements of the budget by the Honourable Minister of Finance on Friday last week. And as always, you are one of the key partners just to help us understand more in terms of the issues of revenue and also tax. And we are happy that you have made time to come before us. So what we'll do is we'll do quick introductions, and then after that, then we start. But also before the introduction, I should mention that we are live on both the Parliament and the TV station. So our people out there are either watching us or listening to the proceedings. So let's start with introductions. We start with yourselves, then the honourable members will do likewise.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Michael Piri. I'm a member of the Zika Tax Committee that looks at the tax affairs of the nation and general tax awareness in the country under the Zika platform. Thank you.
I'm Joseph Matimba, a member of the Zika Tax Committee.
My name is Jeti Lungu. I'm a member of the Taxation Committee.
Felix Chiringwe from Zika Secretariat.
Okay, behind there. You can come closer to the mic.
Ngosa Chikakamonga from Zika Secretariat.
Thank you. Honourable members, let's start with my far left, Honourable Mtali.
Member of Parliament for Chitambo. Remember Chanda Mtali is my name. Hope you got it, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Mungandu Davison, Member of Parliament, Chama South Constituency, Eastern Province.
Zika, good morning. My name is Chonde Saka, Member of Parliament for Milenge in Luapula.
Good morning, Zika. My name is Lloyd Lubosha, Member of Parliament for Chifugu constituency.
Okay. Before Honorable Kambita comes in, let's allow Honorable Mulonda to, so that we finish at the back. Honorable Mulonda. Mike, Honorable Luboja.
Thank you so much, Chair. Good morning, Zika. My name is Mulonda Darius, Member of Parliament for Siavonga constituency in Southern Province.
Thank you, Honorable Kambita.
My name is Brian Kambita, Member of Parliament for Zambezi East constituency, Northwestern Province.
Zika, good morning. My name is Peter Piri, Member of Parliament from Kweka constituency. Thank you.
Good morning, witness. My name is Jamba Majila. I'm MP for Mwembe.
Good morning, Zika. I'm Jean Chisenga, MP Mambilima constituency.
Thank you. Honorable Kamboni.
My name is Harry Kamboni, Member of Parliament for Kalomo Central. You are welcome.
Good morning, Zika. My name is Kona Simunji, Member of Parliament for Narikwanda constituency and a member of Zika.
Thank you, Honorable Kalimi.
Good morning, witness. My name is Tuambo Mutinta. I'm a Member of Parliament for Itezitezi constituency in Southern Province. Thank you.
Retired General Stola, Member of Parliament, Kaoma Central. Yes, retired, of course, but not tired. I represent Kaoma Central in Western Province. You are welcome, Zika. Thank you.
Thank you, members of staff.
Good morning. I'm Edna Kangvia Ziambo from the Office of the Clerk.
My name is Chirimbo Elijah from the Office of the Clerk.
Thank you. Zika, my name is Fred Jatila, Member of Parliament for Momba Constituency in Monza and also the chairperson for the Expanded Planning and Budgeting Committee. Zika, Cap 12 of the laws of Zambia gives you immunity as and when you are appearing before the committee. So you have full immunity, meaning whatever you say whilst in this committee can never be used against you in any court of law, except to the extent that maybe in case you were to mislead the committee deliberately, which I want to believe will not be the case. So what we'll do is we'll give you 30 minutes to take us through your submission, maximum, that is if you need all of it. Then after that, maybe we give another 15 minutes for the members to ask questions of clarification, if at all there will be any, and then we'll close. So we can start, Mr. Pili, with your team, as and when you are ready. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. With your indulgence, I'll just make some preliminary comments. And after making those preliminary comments, I'll not run through the whole report because it's been shared, but rather allow for more interaction so that maybe we can also get some feedback from yourselves, apart from the feedback that we've gotten from our members, to help respond and take the appropriate actions with appropriate government agencies. So to begin with, the budget was presented on Friday, and in the evening on Friday, we hosted a meeting with the Minister of Finance and his team, at which they came and answered to many questions and clarifications that our members had in that meeting. And subsequent meetings were held on Saturday, at which some Ministry of Finance representatives were available. And we thought after people have read the budget and they'd understood it better, maybe we should hold another meeting on Monday, and the symposium was facilitated and held on Monday, at which again our members were present and a number of companies were present, and we followed those interactions. Subsequent to that, various audit firms have been holding other discussions with the Minister of Finance, and so that is what is informing our submission that we are making before you. So the second aspect is that, and the only two things I'll raise here. So the second one is that we have been making several submissions to the Ministry of Finance over the years, and what we are seeing in here and commenting on is actually based on the submissions that we've been making in the past. So I must say, in the first place, Chair, that the members have welcomed this budget. They think that it is a people's budget. We followed the interactions and the questions that have been raised and clarifications that have been raised, and ultimately the members of Zika and the companies that are represented by those members have welcomed this budget as a progressive budget, as a people's budget. So also from a Zika perspective, in terms of the submissions we've been making over the years, we think that this particular budget has attended to the concerns that we've had in the past. The past two budgets have been able to address, by and large, the concerns that we are raising as Zika and our members were raising as Zika. And so we realize that the budget implementation process is a different aspect to the whole budget formulation. And so what our members are encouraging us to do is see how best we can be able to support the government in terms of implementing this budget by helping in accountability in the areas where we are operating from as Zika members, to make sure that the funds that have been appropriated and subsequently will be disbursed are accounted for appropriately. This has been the general theme from our members, that they welcome this bold but very audacious budget, and they think that it is progressive and they think that it will help the country move forward. With those submissions, Chair, I will pause and perhaps allow for questions.
Honourable members, I think we remember initially I had indicated that we have 15 minutes to ask. So in fact we have quite a lot of time to engage. Any questions from Zika? I see two Zika there. I see two hands, Honourable Mungandu and Honourable Simunji. Let's take those two. Then before maybe we start, Honourable Kambita, you may want to refer to page 33 of the Zika submission, and particularly tackle 7.310. Honourable Mungandu.
Thank you, Zika. Clearly you have indicated that you are very happy with this budget, as it is a people-driven budget. I want to find out from you, on the concessions that are being given to the mining firms, there are those that are saying, as a country we are losing a lot of money, we are not getting enough from the mines. And the reasons being advanced by government is that they want to attract more investment in the sector. But for the past 1 year, output in the mines has been going down. We are getting the opposite result. What if this continues? Because we have zero-rated a number of things to do with the mines. We have also mineral royalty tax is now deductible. What if they continue with transfer pricing, and as a country we don't get anything for the next few years? Is it good for the country? If not, what measures do you think the government should put in place to ensure that we don't lose, or few individuals don't go to bed with the mines at the expense of Zambians? I submit, Chair.
Thank you. Honourable Simunji, then we'll come to Honourable Kambita.
Chair, my question has been overtaken.
Okay. Honourable Kambita.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'd like to declare interest that these are my colleagues.
That's why I gave you that question.
So the interaction is a bit more cordial. What I want to find out, Zika, especially that from your fraternity, and particularly Mr. Piri, you are coming from the audit background, and compliance is very key in your field. ZRA have just been here as one of the witnesses, and this is an institution that is mandated to collect this revenue that will be expended. Of course, accountability issues, as you have raised, are very key to ensure implementation of this budget is achieved in terms of its objectives. But on the revenue side, we seem to have an argument as representatives of the people, because people believe that before we could think of going for financing, either domestic financing or external financing, we must stretch ourselves to the maximum to collect maximum revenue from what is available. When you look at the systems put in place, accountants as you are and auditors as you are, I'm sure some of you must have been engaged in reviewing the systems that our revenue collection system has as a country. Do you think there are adequate controls overall? Or do you have any ideas you can suggest to this committee which can be carried on board to ensure that the tax administration systems are improved so that we stretch closer to the maximum of what should have been collected amidst all these rebates that are being given, reduction, removal of duty in this and that and that and that? If the leakages will continue the way they are, we will still have. And then I want you to comment also on one issue, still related to the revenue collection. Many a times we have seen, I think year in, year out, ZRA has bragged to say that they have actually hit overboard, above the targets. Do you think in their planning process they actually set the realistic targets? I submit, Chair.
Thank you. Zika, you can respond to those 3 questions.
I'll start, Chair, and my colleagues will chip in where necessary. So to begin with the question from Honorable Mungandu. All right, with regard to the concessions that are given to the mining sector, as well as that the past year the output production has been going down, and that there may be zero rating, then the measures on mineral royalty, non-deductibility, transfer pricing. So some comments are solicited on these, and I'll speak through each of those. Now, the concerns around the mines not producing enough is a product of the lack of investment in the sector in the recent past, and now we are beginning to bear the consequences of that lack of investment in the sector, and so the production has been going down. Chair, when we began, I said we are happy that over the past 2 years we've seen that measures we had been advocating for have been passed, and because we had been advocating for these measures, being fully aware that when we get to 2023 to 2025, the existing mines would have reached their apex and begun to decline in terms of the production, and that there was therefore need to intervene 5 years ago to be able to see how the mines can be recapitalized, further development done, and that mining can continue. Chair, the way we read this, we had big exploration companies in Zambia, and we've seen these big exploration companies exit over the past 10 years as a result of changes in the policy which were not attractive to them. We had companies like BHP Billiton, which is one of the biggest exploration companies in the world operating in Zambia. They exited. We had Vale, they exited. And all of them were indicating in their exits that it was because of the non-favorable conditions that were subsisting in Zambia. And we had existing mines crying out and saying, when you hit us with MRT of 20%, you're not giving us any more revenue to be able to invest back into the mining sector. You are choking the industry. And we brought these cries to even this parliament. We've been appearing before your committee. Honorable Peter Piri, I think we've been interacting for many years, and a number of you here, we've been interacting for many years. And you know that our story has been, can we do something to the mining regime, make it more attractive for investment, because we're going to get into trouble in future. Now we've reached that point where, again, the mining sector was almost going to its knees. And so when going to its knees, it meant that the government needed to take some bold steps to be able to reactivate mining activity in Zambia. So that production decline is as a result of the policies that were undertaken, which discourage investment into mining and discourage further exploration, and is what has led now to the decline in the production. It was much cheaper for smelters to be able to get ore from the DRC than to mine, and that's the story of KCM and Mopani. So it was cheaper to use ore from across the border and be able to smelt it in Zambia than produce our own copper here in Zambia because of the sort of regime we had. So what this is doing now is to try and get us to a place where we can again start mining rather than importing concentrates and having them processed in Zambia, because that doesn't add to our production. It subtracts from our overall production on that first score. Chair, if you allow me, on the zero rating, maybe I would need further guidance on what might have been zero rated for the benefit of the mining sector.
Honorable Mwandu. We want to help you, Honorable.
Chair, I was trying to explain in terms of the same is mentioned of exploration. If you've seen, they've introduced incentives. Just at exploration stage, companies are able to request for VAT refunds on the equipment that they are bringing in to do those explorations. So what if these firms end up shortchanging us in the long run? I wanted to find out if this budget or government has put in place measures to ensure that we will be able to detect that and review it.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. It's clear, Chair. Thank you. So, so the whole claiming of VAT by mining and exploration companies has been there for a while, and so the machinery that they procure is still, they are able to claim the input VAT. I think that is international norm. The way VAT operates, it operates on international principles, and one of the principles is that if you are dealing in export of goods, then those goods ideally should be zero rated, and so that gives rise to the refunds, which I know the Zambia Revenue Authority is doing, trying to work around to see whether they can improve efficiencies in the refund system and avoid fraud, as has been reported in the recent past. Now, Honorable Mwandu, you also raised the issue of mineral royalty deductible. Again, this is international practice. We were the odd one out as a country who were having mineral royalty non-deductible. And these are the things that were making Zambia unattractive for further investment in the mining sector. Because as you know, we are not the only mining jurisdiction for copper here. There are other countries that also equally produce copper. And so when you pass a law like non-deductibility of mineral royalty, you make your destination, Zambia, unattractive. I think the minister did elaborate and speak about how Congo DR, even though it, and I know I'm live on television, but even though it has issues, let me just say generally in terms of the governance and operations in the DRC, there may be issues there, but they are still growing from copper production. They are aiming to do 2,500,000 tons next year. They are sitting at about 1,800,000 tons this year for Zambia. This shouldn't be the case. Zambia should be a more attractive destination. And the ore bodies that we have, for a fact I know at Konkola, because we're operating there as well, that it's a very rich ore body. And it's a big ore body. And if it's exploited, it can help to increase the numbers of production here in Zambia. Now, transfer pricing, Honorable Mwandu, I think that the USAID, the OECD, international organizations are helping to capacitate the Zambia Revenue Authority in this area of transfer pricing. It's just that sometimes the Revenue Authority doesn't publish the things that they are doing, the efforts that they are making, because this is confidential taxpayer information. But if you took time to interrogate what the revenue has done with regards to addressing transfer pricing, I think they are making progress. They can do more, and we encourage them to do more to stem this whole aspect of transfer pricing so that we can get value for our minerals here in Zambia. I hope I have addressed the questions that Honorable Mungandu raised, and my colleagues want to add before we go to the second question.
Okay. Okay, I think for now, we have a bit of time. So if it's clarification, put it on hold so that we can attend to the,
Chair, I just also wanted to add that I think the question was also asking about the investment that we expect in return. So I think it's up to the government to put in measures to ensure that the expected investment to increase to 3 million tons can actually happen. So it's a question of how do you operationalize that. I'm sure measures are being taken. And then the other considerations is that measures have been taken to sort of address the legal battles, because that's also making the sector quite unattractive. But the most important one is the pronouncement that there are plans to put in place a mining policy. The moment a mining policy is done, it's going to really resolve the issues of inconsistent policy which has been happening in the last 10 years. And because during policy formulation, all the stakeholders will need to be consulted, so it means the public's concerns will need to be part of that policy. Then the concerns of the investors will be part of that policy. So we hope that as a long-term strategy, this will resolve the issues of consistency and will balance the interest of the taxpayers in Zambia as well as the investors. Thank you, Mr.
Okay, then Honorable Kamitasi. Oh, okay, you are still on the same?
And in addition, remember that mines is a value chain. So there are other ripple effects that come with operating mines. There are suppliers to mines. There are the employees themselves who pay direct taxes. The suppliers that pay both indirect and indirect taxes. So once the mines are operational and there is increased activity, you see that there's a ripple effect that also has a social impact in the various communities.
Okay, honorable members, we still have a first round question, so let our colleagues respond to Honorable Kambita. We'll come back to that. So let's move in that order. So Honorable Kambita, see. Your mic?
Through the chair, yeah. The compliance levels at ZRA have been very low. And yes, we agree that these compliance levels have been very low. And we are actually working more closely with the Zambia Revenue Authority to be able to help them improve their system. As a matter of fact, this afternoon we should have held a meeting where we provide feedback to them on the challenges that their system is causing for businesses. Even in our interactions, we did indicate to the Commissioner General that they need to cure the problems that they have with their systems because they are an impediment to the payment of tax. Paying tax itself is a challenging thing to do, and more so when the systems are also failing you. So you just make a difficult task even more difficult. And so the Commissioner General has been magnanimous. We've been holding quarterly meetings, so we should have held one today with his officers to explain to them what is working and what is not working. We've volunteered our employees so that where the system is not working well, they need to test. We volunteer them to be able to help them test the system so that compliance levels can be increased. And so it's a critical thing in this IT environment that we are operating in to make sure that you have reliable systems that can be able to facilitate payments of taxes as well as interrogate the numbers. I know the CG must have been speaking about the interactions that they want with various departments of government. There's a lot of information that they capture which they are not utilizing, and so we want them to be able to utilize that information so that the revenues can go up. In short, it's not about tinkling the taxes to be paid in order for us to get more. It is creating efficiencies in the collection mechanism that the Revenue Authority has that will be able to bring in more revenues. So the cleaner the data they have on the debts that are owed by a company, the easier it will be for them to be able to collect those debts. So, but now the ZRA acknowledges, even us, we know that the data they have may not be very clean. because of system challenges they've had in the past, which have caused improper accounting for the payments that are made by taxpayers. So I see that the Honorable Kambita was raising his hand. I don't know whether I had said something wrong, Honorable Kambita.
No, you can continue.
So what you're saying is correct, that we want this government to raise own internal revenues before it can be able to go out and borrow. We want the Ndola Lusaka Road done through own generated funds rather than from PPP or these other initiatives that the government is putting in place. If we had our own money, we could have built the road that leads to Chitambo, you know, the Great North Road, the one that is damaged that way, from our own resources. And the next good approach is to be able to then borrow from where you are not having the resources, be able to borrow from multilateral lenders to be able to develop these. But even this can't be achieved. Now we are having to ask private individuals to be able to help in terms of the PPP program that the government has put in place. It's not the ideal, but I think it's where you find yourselves in. When you are in between a rock and a hard place, you've got to work out what is within your means to be able to achieve. The ZRA Commissioner General should have told you that the current collections as a percentage of GDP, they're struggling to even attain 17%. They need to cure the systems to jump from 17 to 21, or is it 22 that they want in 5 years. At 17% of GDP, the whole collection mechanism is not efficient, and we know that it's because of the systems challenges that they've had, which we are encouraging them. Rather than just shout at them, we've said, ZRA, can you work with Zika so that we can test this system for you, tell you where it's not working, and make it function so that we can move forward. We don't want to be armchair critics. We want to play our role to help in terms of how the Revenue Authority can enhance its collections. I hope I have answered to those. I know there are many hands coming up.
I see a hand from your colleague. Maybe you can come in a bit, then we will open to our members.
And also writing on what Mr. Piri has said in relation to revenue collection, there is also the non-tax revenue part that is usually not given much attention. But we are happy to note that the coming of the government service bus is helping in bringing the various services that government provides on one platform. But would encourage government to ensure that this is accelerated and that most of these essential services that government is providing are on the service bus, because then they become more accessible, and in turn the much needed non-tax revenue is generated. But the flip side also is that ensuring that these institutions that are collecting non-tax revenue are also funded on time. Because if then they don't receive their funds on time, it affects their program implementation. Remember, most of these services are paid for upfront by the various customers that seek this. So just striking that balance and ensuring that all the essential services are on the service bus, that will also help in increasing the non-tax revenue collected.
Thank you. Now, honourable members, maybe before we'll go this way, Honourable Jamba, then Honourable Kamboni. I don't say, then we'll have Honourable Chonde. But since you opened up something, so I didn't get your name. Yes, the issue of the government service bus in relation to non-tax revenue, these pronouncements have been talked about, and always have been, in fact, a lot of engagement we have had with both ZRA and others, and this is the right direction. But you see what has happened this year's budget compared to last year's. If you have checked, the non-tax revenue component has reduced compared to last year's. Last year it was at 4% of the total budget. This year is at 10% of the total budget. I know last year's budget was about 172. This year is 167. But even when you look at the absolute figures, there's that reduction. At the same time, then there are these proposed measures So maybe the question is, as you go to respond to the other questions, when do we see this starting bearing fruits? Because we have been talking about enhancing our collections in terms of the area of non-tax revenue. Honorable Jamba, so you come on as you respond to our colleagues.
Thank you very much, Chair. There is a lot of talk on the general populace. I think that's why Honorable Mungando was trying to insist for you to come out on the mining issues and how sometimes we advise the government. I can read on page 6 where you say mobilize a domestic revenue at least 20%, 20.9%. Paragraph 2 says, in 2023, we expect to see continued positive performance in domestic revenue collections as the newly employed public workers of at least 41,000. Now, you know, maybe I'm not an accountant, I'm a land surveyor, so my thinking is weird. How is this positive to you to get taxes from people, say teachers or service providers, accountants who are seated in the offices that are adding value in terms of positivity in the revenue mobilization? I thought these people are on the consumption side. Where is this money going to be coming from where you are going to be paying teachers when you say it's a positive one? And someone will say, look here, you are so quick to be talking about this pay as you earn and other things on an individual. And then you are saying you are giving concession to the mining conglomerates. Now, you talked about Biriton, BHT Biriton. For your own information, Chair, I was working for GeoQuest, one exploration company. I know these Anglo and whatever, De Beers. These people, you give them concession for 5 years. Immediately the 5 years ends, they pack and go, because now you want to start taxing them. They pack and go, and then after 5 years, you start pleading for them, please come back. Don't you think that this whole thing of the mining issue is a big circus, where people just want to milk? Because when you're talking about production, I hear people say, no, in Congo, the production has actually increased and because of favorable whatever. But you can also get a mining engineer and a geologist to tell you what has actually so much reduced in terms of production in Zambia. Do we still have the pits which have got good ore, which we can produce those tonnages? When someone is talking about 3 million tonnages, where are you producing them? Because after working for mineral exploration so much in Zambia, in terms of copper, the huge chunk of the copper which is now being existent is in the DR Congo, because they have not been mining for some time. We have been mining for some time. The question is, don't you think we are shooting the wrong side, where people say a person like a teacher is being perceived as a positive source of income? Even you as accountants, you are being seen as a positive source of income. That is for me, I don't see it as being positive. So I was looking at issues where we are going to say, okay, what do we do? Sorry, Chair, for talking too much. What I've noticed is,
to cut you.
Yes, I'm cutting. Don't cut me. I've just spoken once. I've been speaking for some time. The issue here is that, look, Zika, we have got, where can we generate money in Zambia? If you are going to tell the people, the Minister of Finance, okay, please, how do we find a way of giving loans to people in Zambia like me who want to go into dairy farming, so that I'm given to buy 1,200 cows of dairy farms and start producing this milk and selling powdered milk and then bring money, rather than this idea of always giving concessions to people who, after 5 given concessions, they will turn against you. No, this thing is, immediately they want to start mining, they change it. No, we are going out, we are now going to Benin. I hope you have gotten what I'm saying.
Thank you. Honorable Kamboni.
You are the people who are designing these tax regimes. and I'm not very comfortable with it.
Honorable Kamboni,
Yes.
for our viewers there and the listeners, talk through the mic. So
Yes,
that
the
they are
mic
able
is,
to-
yes. The tax regimes you have are very complicated for an ordinary person. You know, in each field, people have got their own jargon. In the medical field, but when you are dealing with your client, the language you use, your client should be able to understand it at a go without much ado. Then you have a relationship with the clients. And the way you tax here, I don't know. Because if you are talking of stimulation here to allow growth, it means you don't have immediately to kill the same cow you want to milk. But the cow is pregnant, you are already beginning to start milking. I'll give you how, I lived in Botswana briefly, but this is what I saw. If you are earning, by that time the puller was very strong. If you are earning from one puller to 250,000, you are exempted from tax completely so that you can grow. Here, you open a business today, you have made 50 kwacha, today, maybe tomorrow, by the end of the month, you must pay tax. And if you have checked all these businesses that are there, growth is really difficult. The environment has been very harsh. And part of the contributing factor is how you design your tax. And first of all, it's not easy for an ordinary man. I live in Kalomo where I have boys who are just, some of them grade 4, but they own 5, 10 trucks. And the tax regime is very complicated. Even just to do, you have to get to engage somebody. And then too, the availability of these areas, ZRA, the responsibility of ZRA, where you can pay tax, where you can consult, is not available. Information is hidden. Why can't you simplify your tax regime? And by simplifying also, I mean also reduce it to a level whereby you don't have to be dishonest. The tax system we have in Zambia, when you are honest, is very brutal. So you are forced to, if you have made 50,000, to hide a little bit to manage the tax. Very few businessmen will enter heaven. So this is what happens. I gave an example here where you declare, you buy a car, 45,000 USA dollars. And you want to bring it here. I asked, calculate. I want to be honest. And they told me, if I didn't have a tax for certificate for SADC, I would pay 560,000, which is about 30,000, 34,000 USA dollars for the car I bought at 45,000. That's suicide. So everyone who declares here, they have to lie. The same accountant will tell you, reduce, you won't manage. But that's not the way it is in Southern Africa. Southern Africa, you go, you don't even care. The same price you have, you give them, and you manage the tax. It won't kill you. You actually take a boat, you buy a phone, you want to pay tax here. And it's reasonable. Here it's not when you are honest. It is a taxi for crooked people. Those are the ones who survive. Why can't we make the tax regime reasonable? Because you're not there to kill. And the more it is reasonable, the more people will declare and come forward to pay tax. I'll give a system. When I was in that other country, where if you bought items for 4,000 kwacha, for 4,000 pula, it was tax-free. So if I went, myself, my wife, my 2 children, I was allowed, the rule was very clear, 4. We had 12,000. We would buy things for 12,000. We didn't buy. We didn't pay any tax. You go to the border, Vic Falls, I was seeing, somebody bought shoes, they removed him from his legs, pay tax. Just very little amount. And yet others are going to say, so my point is, I think you still need to redesign your tax regime to make it reasonable and affordable. You don't kill the same cow that gives you the milk.
Okay.
Allow the taxi to bring in an honest person to be honest. Even you who are designing it, if you are going to advise, you be a consultant, you'll be the first one to say, Apa, Uzafa, your business will die. So for you to survive, do this. What are you doing? Dishonest.
Okay.
So that's what I'm trying to say. I think that is, and then also, does now the tax regime you have allow stimulation? The answer is no. It pulls you down. So the tax regime should allow going up, and also this should be equivalent to the service that I'm getting as I pay tax. I think my view is that tax was created that when I pay tax, I get a certain service.
Okay.
In some other countries, when you pay tax at the end of the year, you have some rebate of some kind. They give you maybe 1 month extra so that you benefit. But here, it's about pulling my neck until I squeal. I can't breathe.
Honorable Chonde?
I think mine is a rider on what Honorable Jamba said. Zika, you almost excited me that the policy on mining is quite good. You praised it, that it is attracting investment. But I got a little worried when you seem to have to be referring to the DRC. Now, what is attracting investment in the DRC is not necessarily the policy, because that is a center for exploitation. So is the investment in the DRC something to compare with? Why are you not advising us correctly that we can benchmark with successive countries that have done successive mining, like Australia, who even mine what I can rate to be iron ore, the cheapest mineral, and yet is so successful there. But you are comparing us, you are advising government based on the comparison of things which are happening in the DRC. DRC is a country that has been cited for, it's a center of exploitation. It's common sense. Where I come from in Milenge, we are bordering DRC. We know what is happening there without even listening to you. So I doubt your advice that you are giving to government, whether it is accurate or not. As long as you are comparing it to the DRC, then it brings a lot of doubt in my own analysis. Thank you.
Honorable Piri? And this is the last round, colleagues. We need to wind up.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a small or simple question. Thank you so much, Zika. Looking at your submission, I've gone through and you are almost agreeing with what the Finance Minister said in his budget. Now, my question is, did the government consult you when actually coming up with, or did you input something in your budget, in this year's budget? Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Sumunji?
Thank you, Chair. I was getting worried that I will not ask my colleagues any question. Zika, when you look at our revenues, or actual expenditure for the budget, it's 167.3 billion, and our revenues will be 113 billion, which will be raised from domestic revenues. Now, which leaves a gap of about 54 billion. Now, the 54 billion we need to raise internally, we need to raise about 15.6 billion through 3-year bills and bonds. Do you think this is how far we can do in the internal in generating money internally, so that we don't affect our private sector? Because when you go into the private sector and borrow more, like this 15 billion, it means I, a member of Zika, I will not be able to go on the market and borrow, because it becomes expensive. The interest rates will go up. Do you think this will be good for the private sector? Thank you.
Thank you. I had indicated that was the last one. I see a hand from Honorable Loboja. So that is the last.
Thank you. I'm just doing a follow-up, I'm sure, question to what the other honorable member had asked to say. Were you consulted by government during the time they were drafting the budget? If the answer is yes, to which you haven't yet given, if the answer is yes, now my follow-up question to you is that government has continued to employ almost 41,000 people in the service industry. than in the productive industry. What is your take or advice to government? Because there are other productive industry from which government can raise revenue, such as agriculture, to which only in this year we have seen the recruitment of only 256 agricultural extension officers in order to boost the agriculture industry where we can get production. But we have invested 41,000 employees in the service industry, where we are going to, which is going to take a bigger chunk of most of the revenue that we are going to be collecting. Even if we are going to tax those people, still they cannot beat the revenue that we are investing there. Your position on government constant employment of people in the service industry than in the productive industry.
Thank you very much. So, Mr. Piri, if you are able to respond to all those, maybe maximum of 7 minutes, your mic, so that then we wind down, that would be great. Yeah.
So, in following your advice, I'll respond to Honorable Chonde and Honorable Jamba's questions as one. And the simple response is that the reference to the DRC, apart from just quoting what the minister said, is really in recognition of the embarrassing situation that we are finding ourselves in. That a peaceful, you see, when people want to invest in a jurisdiction, they look at governance, how peaceful the country is, and how politically stable it is, etc. Now, what we are saying is it's embarrassing that a chaotic place like, and I was being very cautious in describing the DRC because we are live on this television, that a chaotic jurisdiction like the DRC, now I'm enjoying your privileges, sir, can do better than a properly functioning and better run country like Zambia. That is really the gist of the matter. We cannot sit and relax while people are finding it easier and better to mine in a chaotic environment. And I've been there as well. I've been to the Eastern Congo, and I know the chaos that is there. And yet a peaceful and stable economic environment like ours, no exchange controls and all the things that we have, we're failing to be able to, it's that embarrassment that we are not happy about. And yes, BHP, Billiton, they come, they explore, they go, etc. Mining is about exploration. You don't explore to be able to discover new ores, it is indeed a dying activity. Unless you can engage in continuous exploration, you mine what you have and you end your mining right there. And so, much as we may not be happy with these international big players who are exploring and then they leave, the bottom line is that if we don't do any more exploration, then we can forget about mining in Zambia, because you can't begin to mine before you do exploration. Exploration takes a long time, and mining itself also is a long-term project. And so you've got to invest now in order for you to be able to reap results from the discoveries that will come in future. And I was saying here through the chair that there are SRK reports, for instance, on KCM. It's a huge ore body. So that whole ore body that stretches down into the Congo also stretches through into Zambia and the part that we are mining there. And so all it requires is a little more exploration in those areas, and then you'll be able to discover whether indeed there is any more or not. As a matter of fact, the 3T Kansanshi project, it's further exploring, going further into getting more ore into new areas rather than where they are mining from. So we cannot run away from exploration if we're going to hit the 3 million tons. Yes, there are huge deposits in Congo, and 3 million tons, how was it arrived at? Has there been any scientific evidence of how this 3 million tons has been arrived at? We don't know. But even if we didn't, not to aspire, not to aim for something, is really a worse off situation than to aim and reach somewhere in terms of where you want to get to. That's how we perceive things. Moving on then, where can you generate money from Zambia? And I was going to ask that question as well, that the way we see it, currently 41% of the revenues that are collected by Zambia Revenue Authority are collected from the mining industry. 41%, 41.8% to be in particular. There's been a negative narrative about mining, but we can tell you that the Zambia Revenue Authority presented its figures on Monday. 41.8% of its revenues come from the mining sector. And that's even before we talk about the suppliers to the mining sector that my colleague Matimba was alluding to. So if we are going to shoot down, make collapse mining, which is contributing 41.8% of our revenues, I'll ask the question again, where will you get your tax revenue? We see agriculture, and now I'm responding to the question that has been asked by, let me get the name right, of the Honorable Luvozia. Yes, Honorable Luvozia, yes. You've asked about agriculture. Yes, we see agriculture and tourism as alternative sources of foreign exchange, as alternative sources of employment creation. And in our discussions with the Revenue Authority, we are telling them, you see, for some things, you don't always look at tax. You also look at the employment creation. We're having a crisis in this nation. The number of people who are unemployed is huge. And now the minister is providing opportunities for us as MPs, through CDF, through farm blocks, and through these initiatives to employ these, because if there is an area where we can employ more people, it's in agriculture. Because we have huge land mass, we have 40% of the water bodies, we have all these good things. And yet what we are seeing, and I'm glad the Honorable Member for Chitambo has come, a budget is given 110,000 for Nansanga farm block, which is between him and Serenje. The money is there. Nobody is interested to even access that money and utilize that money. How will we develop our nation? How will we create employment for our people if we are not using the opportunities that have been created in the budget? So if we don't then utilize the farm blocks, which have been, the extension officers, there are 536 camps that will be renovated. If you as honorable MPs do not encourage the government by making sure that these things are actualized, there's no hope for Zambia. And the question comes, which Honorable Jamba asked, where will we collect the money? Where can we collect more money if we are not exploiting the opportunities that have been given to ourselves? Now, Reverend Kamboni, Honorable Kamboni, I said Reverend. The tax, when you and I started work, we had marriage allowance. The more children you had, the less tax you paid. You remember? So when we started, if you are married, you paid less tax. The more children you had, the less tax you paid. That's how come our parents were having us in our 6s and 7s, etc. The policy then was to be able to encourage population growth as well, so that, you know, bigger population, then you can have better. And things have evolved now. So rather than encourage people to reproduce, we are saying for as long as you earn 4,800 in a month, then you do not get to pay tax. You ask me, I wish it was 10. You ask me if there's a contentious matter which we always hammer on with the minister, is pay as you earn. We tell the minister you are getting 37.5% from individuals. Companies are only paying 30%. Why are we doing this? And the minister is very magnanimous. He says, you know, I would love to give you 30%, but then I will not have the money to even pay CDF, which the MPs are crying for. So I did say we've been caught between a rock and a hard place, where because of the economic situation that we find ourselves in, relief cannot be given to everyone at the same time. We had to pay 37.5%. The only reason we are paying it now, unlike what was happening in 1972, in 1972 they would give you all the money and ask you to go and pay and account for it at the Revenue Authority before then, even much earlier. That is how the system worked. And very few people went and paid the tax. That's when they said, okay, pay-as-you-earn system, can we come in and do pay-as-you-earn system so that you don't get the money. Your employer is the agent to be able to pay that tax. And that's how come this pay-as-you-earn has become very popular. And another area where the government tries to get more money is withholding taxes, because the amount is withheld before you even receive a penny, because of the difficulty of rising up and going to make payment. But what we are applauding is the fact that artisanal miners will pay 4% flat rate on whatever they earn. If you are renting, they have introduced 4% last year. 12.5% if it's above a certain threshold because of the property development companies. So there is efforts to simplify the tax regime, but I'm sure they can do better. And even lower the tax rates, but subject to the revenue, the government being able to generate money from elsewhere. Honorable Simunji, you are saying 113 billion. Is this the best? Aren't we crowding out by borrowing borrowing 15 from the domestic market? The explanation the minister has given is that he has treasury bills which he needs to roll over. Not that necessarily the government will be going and borrowing new money, but treasury bills will mature, and as they mature, he needs to roll them over. Perhaps he's in a better place to explain how this will work so that, but what we understand is that there won't be any crowding out of private sector, because all he's doing is trying to roll over the treasury bills that have been serviced. So, my honorable MP for Chitambo, let's go to Nansanga, go to the Ministry of Local Government today and tell him where is the 110,000 which has been appropriated in the budget, so that we begin to see roads being done to Nansanga and create employment for the many youths who I know who are living in Chitambo and in Serenje districts. Chair, I hope I've answered all the questions. And thank you.
I think there's one more remaining, but also before you respond to that one, I want to remember us, we only have one lady here. I'll be under fire if she doesn't ask a question. So she whispers, Honorable Chiseng, she wants to ask a question, and then you can also respond to the. I had asked that question of the reduction in terms of the non-tax revenue this year versus last year. Maybe you can also tag on that as you respond to Honorable Chisanga's question.
Thank you, Chairperson, for accommodating me this opportunity to ask as the only female on this committee. Thank you so much. I'll draw you to page 31 at 731. As you may be aware, as a country, we are trying to recover. In the tourism sector, we didn't do much, especially during the COVID-19. But if you see the incentive that we've been given at 731, I don't think it's going to help us at all recover in the tourism sector. So simply put, don't you think a lot more could have been done, even drawing a bit from the hospitality industry, like the lodges, the restaurants, and just other tourism sectors? Thank you.
Okay, Honorable Piri, you indicated that the question was not responded to as well. Whether we were being consulted during the process of the budget processes. So you can respond to those three in a brief fashion, then we close.
Beginning with Honorable Piri there, on whether we were consulted. Yes, we were consulted. And I think there was a follow-up question of why employ 41,000 in the service industry than in the production industry. I think I addressed the production industry, but from the service industry perspective, the reality is that an uneducated population is a time bomb. So you need an educated population, and there's no substitute for education, which is the greatest equalizer for our members in our constituencies. And unless you have teachers who can be able to train and provide quality education for our people, we are creating a problem for ourselves. So education will mean skills that are developed subsequently, and those skills will be able to help our people in terms of get self-employed, or indeed be able to get employment. Honorable Chisenga, the tourism sector is a growth sector. So we see these pronouncements in the budget in addition to the ones that were made last year. Yeah, so to the ones that were made last year, so you should see them from that perspective. Some of the measures which were announced last year will expire at the end of 2023. So you have to take those and add to what has been pronounced in this year. But all to say, we wish we could do more. We wish we could just make hotel accommodation VAT-free, for example. Well, he could make, reduce the cost of, remove visas completely rather than for selected countries that he has selected. We wish he could do much more to open up the tourism sector. But I think it's a balancing act where the minister is looking at how much loss he will lose, how much revenue he will lose if he went ahead and implemented everything else that we want him to implement to support the tourism sector. We did tell him when we met on Monday and even on Friday that mono-dependence on foreign exchange is dangerous. He needs to diversify his foreign exchange sources. And one area where he can easily diversify his foreign exchange sources is tourism, because money will be able to come in from the tourists who spend in Zambia, and that will help him have a little more sources of Kenya. We know, I need not lecture to you very learned people. You know that other economies survive on foreign exchange from tourism. Malawi survives on foreign exchange from agriculture, and we have those avenues where we need to be able to exploit further. Gentlemen, help me. I might have left out some questions.
Chair. Yes, Chair. I just wanted to maybe expand more on the process, because I think probably some members thought that we're just rubber stamping or just agreeing with everything that the government has put in there. So what normally happens is that before the budget, we make a list of submissions. Maybe we make, say, 30 submissions. And in practice, you find out of those 30, the government may just adopt, say, 7 of them. Then next year comes, we'll repeat some of them. Some of them are only adopted after repeating them, even 7 years. So what happens is that it's a give and take. So you find that the government doesn't always take what to advise them. And then it means that when we say that we are happy, it means that we're making a generic statement, meaning that to a generic, the government did what they could do within the circumstances. They took some of the advice we gave them. But next year we'll repeat whatever they haven't agreed. We'll be back. We'll be knocking on their doors. So that's the negotiation process we go through with the government. Thanks.
And in addition, remember you were saying there's the balance between NTR and the VAT revenue, non-tax revenue, and the tax revenues. Remember, there were some concessions given. For example, no visa fees. That's non-tax revenue lost, isn't it? But the resulting effect of that action will increase some tax revenue somewhere. Remember, when a tourist comes, they're staying in an hotel where they are paying VAT, where they're paying all these other indirect taxes. So it's a balancing act. But what is important is that this service bus is a viable project that can help government to raise non-tax revenue, to bridge the gap between the tax and the stretch over the taxpayers. So what is important is government should invest in, rather than just systems, but also in equipping these institutions that are providing these services. Because you may find that, for example, immigration, the passport office. If you go to the passport office today, it's a sorry sight. People are paying, but they can't access passports. Why? There are no materials. So invest in systems, yes, invest in equipment, yes, but also inputs to allow these service providers to provide that government service efficiently. Thank you.
Honorable members, we can go on, and one time is not with us. Zika, we can only thank you most sincerely for appearing before this committee. We have taken quite in fact a lot of time from yourselves, which is good. And I believe as we leave, most of the members here also are satisfied with our interactions. So, Kapukov of the laws of Zambia in terms of the Immunity Council and NDA, do enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. Honorable members.
And honorable members, let's just remain briefly seated as they leave, just for a short item, then we will leave.
If you've ever needed a